For years, fans believed they knew the real Drew Scott, the charming star who could transform any home and win any heart. But when Suzanne Whang finally decided to speak out, her words revealed a side of him that no one saw coming. What secrets was he hiding behind that perfect smile? Stay with us, because once you hear this, you'll never see him the same way again. When House Hunters first aired in 1999, it quickly became one of HGTV's most recognizable shows. The cozy, reassuring voice guiding viewers through dream kitchens, charming living rooms, and lush backyards belonged to Suzanne Whang. To many, she was the invisible companion on every house hunting journey. Yet behind the warm tone and effortless delivery was a performer with a fascinating and multi-layered career. Suzanne was far more than just a narrator. She was an award-winning stand-up comedian, an accomplished actress, and even a published author. Her work ranged from appearing in the hit show Las Vegas to playing roles in films and making guest appearances on General Hospital. She was also a performance artist who was not afraid to blend humor with sharp cultural commentary, earning her a loyal following outside the HGTV audience. Interestingly, Suzanne did not just read scripts. She often worked closely with producers to ensure her narration carried the right emotional tone for each episode. Viewers might have thought she was simply telling a story, but her voice was crafted to build suspense, guide emotions, and keep audiences hooked until the big reveal of which home the buyers would choose. This skill came from her experience in live comedy, where timing and delivery are everything. What many did not know was that Suzanne had studied psychology at Yale University and earned a master's degree from Brown. This academic background gave her a unique ability to understand human behavior, something she subtly incorporated into her narration. She could tell when to emphasize a buyer's hesitation, when to add a playful lilt to highlight excitement, or when to drop her tone to signal a serious moment. Her connection to the show went beyond professional duty. Suzanne often reflected on how House Hunters gave viewers a glimpse into different lifestyles and cultures, from small-town America to bustling cities across the globe. She believed that a home search was more than just a transaction. It was a window into people's dreams, struggles, and compromises. This belief shaped the way she told each story. But beneath the surface of this seemingly wholesome program, Suzanne began to see the controlled structure that kept the show polished. She noticed how filming schedules, staging decisions, and selective editing created a smooth narrative that was more television than real life. While she did not initially speak about these behind-the-scenes observations, her later comments would spark curiosity about how authentic reality TV truly was. Fans might not realize that Suzanne also had a strong personal life filled with moments of resilience. She survived a decade-long battle with cancer, continuing to work and perform during treatment. Her openness about her health struggles inspired many and showed a side of her far more raw and real than anything seen on television. Through it all, she remained the friendly, trustworthy voice in millions of living rooms. Yet, knowing what she knew about the way stories were shaped for TV, one has to wonder how much of House Hunters was real and how much was just smart editing. That question would later connect her to another HGTV name who also found himself at the center of questions about truth in reality television: Drew Scott. What role could Drew Scott possibly have in the story of hidden truths behind reality TV? Stay with us to know. The shocking rumors you didn't hear. As House Hunters grew into one of HGTV's most profitable shows, its formula seemed almost too perfect. Every episode followed the same clean structure. A hopeful buyer or couple toured 3 properties, weighed their pros and cons, and finally made a decision that left viewers satisfied. But as its popularity soared, whispers began spreading that the perfect presentation might not be as spontaneous as it seemed. The first ripples of suspicion came from people who had actually appeared on the show. Some former participants claimed that they had already purchased their home before filming began. Instead of genuinely house hunting, they were asked to revisit the property they had bought, as well as 2 others chosen by producers, just to fill the storyline. It was television magic at work, not necessarily deception in the eyes of the network, but certainly not the raw, unfolding reality that audiences assumed. More claims surfaced about buyer casting calls, where producers allegedly sought families who were charismatic, photogenic, and willing to work on camera, regardless of whether they were actively looking for a home. This added a subtle layer of performance to what was marketed as documentary-style television. Then there was the staging itself. Homes that were supposedly lived in sometimes contained furniture brought in by stylists for aesthetic appeal. In some cases, Sellers' real belongings were temporarily moved out to make the property camera ready. Lighting crews would adjust the environment to make rooms look bigger, brighter, and more appealing than they were in person. While this was common practice in the industry, for a show that claimed to capture authentic moments, it raised eyebrows. These behind-the-scenes adjustments were not necessarily sinister, but they blurred the lines between reality and entertainment. And when viewers discovered them, it left many wondering if these parts were curated, what else had been shaped for effect. Adding to the intrigue, some of the debates between buyers over which home to choose were reportedly scripted. Participants described being encouraged to exaggerate disagreements to add tension, even if the decision had already been made off-camera. This practice might have kept viewers engaged, but it also chipped away at the authenticity that drew people to the show in the first place. The rumors spread beyond fan forums. Articles began appearing in entertainment news, questioning the truthfulness of reality programming in general. It was no longer just house hunters under the microscope. Other HGTV shows began to face similar scrutiny. Conversations emerged about the ethics of reality TV, the line between entertainment and deception, and whether viewers really cared as long as they were entertained. For Suzanne Whang, these whispers and reports were difficult to ignore. Though she was not responsible for the production choices, her role as the voice of the show made her a symbolic representative of its trustworthiness. When people began questioning whether House Hunters was as genuine as it appeared, her own credibility became part of the discussion. Still, the rumors had another effect. They pulled in other HGTV personalities into the spotlight. One of them was Drew Scott, a star from an entirely different series whose charm, skill, and seemingly flawless transformations had built him a devoted fan base. Just like Suzanne, Drew's work began attracting questions about how real it was. Viewers were starting to notice similarities in how these shows operated, and the conversations were about to get much more pointed. How did Drew Scott, with his clean reputation and huge following, become tangled in these growing doubts? Let us tell you. Suzanne Whang breaks her silence. For years, Suzanne Whang stayed in her lane, the friendly guide, not the headline maker. Even when questions about house hunters bubbled up, she kept her professional smile and kept her comments guarded. But that began to change after a series of interviews where she hinted that reality in television might not always be what it seems. It started with a podcast appearance where the host casually brought up the growing skepticism about HGTV shows. Suzanne's laugh was warm, but her next words carried weight. "Let's just say," she remarked, "if you think everything you see on TV happens exactly that way in real life, you might want to keep a pinch of salt nearby." It was playful, but pointed, enough to catch the attention of media outlets hungry for a soundbite. Over the next few months, Suzanne became more open. At a speaking event for aspiring actors, she talked about the importance of storytelling and how television often shapes moments for emotional impact. "It's not always lying," she explained, "but it's definitely editing, and editing can change meaning." What really turned heads was when she drew parallels between House Hunters and other big-name HGTV productions, mentioning Property Brothers by name. She praised Drew Scott and his brother Jonathan for their charisma and skill, but noted that large-scale renovations shown in under 8 weeks on TV would never happen without months of unseen prep, crew work, and sometimes reshoots. Suzanne stopped short of accusing Drew Scott of wrongdoing, but her choice to single out his show was deliberate. In the world of entertainment, you don't casually mention another high-profile figure unless you're making a point. The implication was clear. What viewers saw was only a fraction of the full picture. Her comments caused a ripple effect. Fans who adored Drew began digging into how Property Brothers was filmed. They found interviews with past homeowners who said certain elements of their renovation were completed off-camera or swapped out entirely for budget reasons. There were even reports that some on-the-spot design decisions were actually planned weeks in advance. The media latched onto the connection between Suzanne's subtle critiques and Drew's spotless public image. Was she trying to warn viewers that even the most beloved reality stars were part of a system built on selective storytelling? Or was she simply stating an industry truth? Either way, her words gave new fuel to rumors that had been quietly circulating for years. Industry insiders weighed in. A former HGTV production assistant admitted in an online forum that timelines shown in episodes were for entertainment purposes. not literal representations of the real process. A veteran TV editor described how easy it was to bend time in reality shows, compressing months into minutes without the audience realizing. Through it all, Suzanne didn't backtrack. If anything, she doubled down, appearing at another event and stating, "Television is like a magic trick. You clap for the illusion, but the real work happens behind the curtain." For a network that depended on the illusion feeling real, this was a bold statement. Her decision to speak openly marked a turning point, not just for her public image, but for the conversation about Drew Scott and reality TV as a whole. She had cracked open the door. Now, people wanted to know what was on the other side. And that's when Drew's own world began to show its cracks. Let us tell you. Drew Scott's carefully crafted image under fire. For years, Drew Scott seemed untouchable. His brand was built on the perfect blend of charm, skill, and relatability. Whether he was negotiating a property deal or joking with his twin brother Jonathan on camera, Drew projected warmth and confidence. Fans didn't just watch Property Brothers for the renovations. They watched because Drew felt like someone they could trust. But in the wake of Suzanne Whang's subtle revelations, curiosity turned into scrutiny. Journalists began revisiting interviews, production notes, and behind-the-scenes stories about the show. Suddenly, Drew's squeaky clean image was being examined with a magnifying glass. The first signs of trouble came from old client testimonials resurfacing online. Some homeowners praised the brothers' expertise, but others described the process as far more chaotic than what viewers saw. One couple revealed that their 3-month renovation had actually taken almost a year, with long stretches of silence from the production team. Another claimed that certain upgrades they discussed on camera were never completed because they were for filming purposes only. Then came the budget questions. In episodes, Drew often presented tight, impressive budgets transforming properties with what seemed like modest funds. But contractors familiar with similar work questioned how those numbers could be realistic. Some suggested that certain costs were covered by production or offset by sponsorships, meaning the figures shown to viewers didn't reflect actual market prices. This raised doubts about whether the show was a fair guide for real-life renovations. Industry insiders also spoke about set dressing in finished homes, where some of the stylish furniture and decor seen at the reveal was actually on loan, returned to suppliers once filming wrapped. While not unusual in television, this clashed with the perception that every beautiful item in the home belonged to the client. Social media amplified the noise. Threads on Reddit and Twitter dissected episodes frame by frame, pointing out inconsistencies in construction timelines or features that seemed to appear magically from one scene to the next. Fans debated whether these were harmless editing choices or signs that Drew's on-screen promises weren't matching reality. Drew, for his part, initially responded with lighthearted comments in interviews, brushing off criticism as the nature of TV. But as the conversations grew louder, he began facing tougher questions, particularly about whether viewers had been misled about the scope and speed of his projects. Some PR experts suggested that Drew's brand was at risk not because of the criticisms themselves, but because of the contrast between his polished image and the messy truths emerging from behind the curtain. People had built him up as a role model for transparency and trust, and even small cracks in that image felt amplified. Yet this was not just about one man's reputation, it was about the growing awareness that reality television, especially in the home improvement space, often blended fact with performance. Suzanne's earlier comments had planted the seed, and now Drew's empire was feeling the tremors. The pressure on Drew intensified as former collaborators, contractors, and even a few past clients hinted there was more to the story that had never made it to air. What those insiders revealed next would challenge everything fans thought they knew. You won't want to miss it. If this is what insiders dared to admit, can you imagine what happened when the public found out? The public backlash Drew never saw coming. When the insider accounts began circulating online, they didn't just stir quiet chatter, they lit a fuse. Fans who had spent years admiring Drew Scott felt blindsided. Social media turned into a battleground where every frame of Property Brothers was dissected, replayed, and questioned. Twitter threads exploded with side-by-side comparisons of on-screen claims versus reported behind-the-scenes practices. Reddit communities dedicated to home renovation shows suddenly had viral posts titled things like, "So, have we been watching a lie?" Viewers began sharing their own experiences meeting Drew or visiting filming locations, with stories ranging from glowing praise to unsettling inconsistencies. Hashtags like #PropertyReality and #ScottScandal trended for days. While not every post was negative, the volume of conversation created a perception problem for Drew, one that no PR-friendly Instagram post could erase. It wasn't just the general audience speaking up. Real estate agents and contractors started chiming in, offering professional breakdowns of why certain on-screen budgets, timelines, and results didn't line up with industry norms. One viral TikTok by a home renovation expert, titled "Why Drew Scott's $80,000 Kitchen Isn't What You Think," racked up millions of views in under 48 hours. The media took notice. Entertainment blogs, lifestyle magazines, and even mainstream outlets began publishing think pieces about authenticity in reality television, often using Drew Scott as the prime example. Headlines danced between intrigue and accusation, the cracks in HGTV's Golden Couple, and Behind the Shiplap, What Drew Scott Doesn't Show You. In a surprising twist, some of Drew's most loyal fans rallied to defend him. They argued that television was always a blend of fact and entertainment, and that the real issue was audience naivety, not producer deceit. But for every defense, there were 3 new posts demanding full transparency from the Property Brothers brand. The pressure mounted when advertisers began quietly reconsidering their partnerships. A few brands that had featured prominently in episodes suddenly disappeared from the show's promotions. Insiders hinted this was no coincidence. Corporations are quick to distance themselves from controversy, even if it's more about optics than truth. Drew's response was measured but firm. In a press statement, he reiterated his commitment to delivering inspiring stories of home transformation and reminded audiences that television is a storytelling medium, not a live broadcast of reality. The statement calmed some nerves but fueled others, especially those who felt he was dodging the deeper issues raised by insiders. The real sting for Drew wasn't the criticism itself. It was that the criticism came from people who once admired him, who had trusted him to be as real off-screen as he appeared on it. That sense of betrayal gave the backlash a sharper edge, one that cut deeper into his public image than any previous controversy had. If the public reaction shook him this much, what happened when the network itself stepped in? The fallout, careers on the line. The storm that started as whispers about Drew Scott and Property Brothers had now become a full-force media spectacle, and like any major TV controversy, it wasn't just about the story but about the careers it could make or break. Suzanne Whang, the woman whose candid words had added fuel to the fire, found herself in a unique position. Unlike Drew, her career wasn't tethered to one specific brand or show. She was respected in multiple entertainment circles as an actress, a comedian, and a host, and she had always been known for speaking her mind. In fact, her reputation as a truth-teller only grew. Media outlets invited her for interviews, podcasts, and panel discussions, casting her as a bold voice willing to break the HGTV illusion. For Drew Scott, the picture was more complicated. His career was deeply entwined with the HGTV brand, and his image was built on trust, charm, and consistency. The controversy didn't just question his work. It questioned the authenticity of everything viewers had believed about him for over a decade. That kind of doubt lingers. Behind the scenes, industry insiders whispered about meetings at HGTV headquarters where executives discussed damage control. Reality TV thrives on personality-driven brands, and Drew was one of their crown jewels. Losing audience trust wasn't just bad for Property Brothers. It threatened a whole network ecosystem built around the Scott brothers' charisma. Other figures connected to the show also felt the tremors. Contractors and designers who had appeared in episodes suddenly found themselves fielding uncomfortable questions from potential clients. Some admitted privately that their businesses had taken a hit from the association. For them, the line between fame and fallout was thinner than they had realized. In Hollywood, scandals are sometimes career-ending, but they can also be survivable if navigated carefully. Publicists know that with the right combination of silence, carefully chosen media appearances, and new projects, it's possible to rebuild. Drew's team reportedly considered launching a new format, something smaller in scale, less dependent on the perfect reveal formula, to quietly shift public perception. What made this fallout particularly fascinating was how it illustrated the fragile economy of trust in the entertainment industry. A celebrity chef can survive a bad review of a restaurant, but for a TV personality whose entire selling point is relatability and honesty, losing that trust can feel like losing the foundation of the house they built. In the months following the initial uproar, careers began to diverge. Suzanne's speaking engagements and public appearances increased, drawing in audiences who appreciated her candor. Drew, meanwhile, faced the long, careful work of reputation repair, avoiding overexposure while trying to remind fans why they had liked him in the first place. But in an industry driven by ratings, what happens when the very network that made you famous starts to reconsider your future? Reality TV at a crossroads, what comes next? The Drew Scott controversy was more than a bump in one celebrity's career. It became a wake-up call for an entire industry. For decades, reality TV has thrived on a delicate illusion, giving viewers just enough truth to feel real, but polishing it with editing, lighting, and story arcs to keep it entertaining. The formula was so successful that audiences rarely questioned what they saw, until now. The conversation around authenticity in television has grown louder and more insistent. Viewers are no longer passive consumers. They are fact-checkers, investigators, and critics. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit have created a culture where a single screenshot or behind-the-scenes clip can unravel an entire narrative carefully crafted by producers. The old guard of reality TV is discovering that audiences don't just want to be entertained, they want to believe. Networks are already reacting. Industry insiders report that some production companies are introducing new policies for truth verification in their shows. This includes more transparency in budget breakdowns, real-time filming schedules, and even disclaimers explaining which parts of a show are staged for efficiency. The days of passing off a heavily scripted moment as spontaneous may be numbered, but with transparency comes risk. If audiences see too much of the messy, unedited reality, will they still watch? That's the paradox networks are wrestling with. One executive from a major lifestyle channel hinted at a hybrid model, where producers admit to certain staging but keep the emotional core of the story intact. It's a gamble, but it may be the only way to bridge the gap between entertainment and honesty. The Drew Scott situation also inspired a surge in independently produced renovation content. Smaller YouTube channels, free from network constraints, began attracting millions of views by showing the raw, unglamorous side of home makeovers, the delays, the budget blowouts, the arguments that never make it into polished TV edits. For some viewers, this gritty realism was more satisfying than the perfectly staged reveals of traditional shows. If this trend continues, the balance of power in reality entertainment could shift dramatically. Networks, once the undisputed gatekeepers of lifestyle programming, may find themselves competing with creators who can build loyal audiences without multi-million-dollar sets or production crews. The big question is whether the industry will embrace this change or resist it until viewers turn away for good. History shows that television has reinvented itself before. Think of how game shows, soap operas, and sitcoms evolved over decades, but each reinvention comes with casualties. Some stars adapt and thrive. Others fade into the remember when corners of pop culture. And as for Drew Scott, his career will likely serve as a case study in how public perception, social media scrutiny, and changing audience expectations can collide in ways that reshape an entire genre. Whether he rebounds or not, the mark he's left on reality TV will be hard to erase. If the old rules no longer work, who will be bold enough to write the new ones? The reality check that could change everything. The Drew Scott controversy was not just another celebrity scandal. It was a mirror held up to an industry that has, for too long, relied on illusion. It exposed something uncomfortable, yet unavoidable. The modern audience has outgrown the era when viewers blindly accepted what they saw on their screens. Reality television, ironically, must now face reality itself. For years, networks had perfected a formula: a relatable star, a compelling problem, a tidy resolution wrapped in 42 minutes. It worked brilliantly because it satisfied both the emotional and psychological needs of the audience. People tuned in not just for entertainment, but for a sense of hope, transformation, and aspiration. But that hope came with a hidden price: carefully manipulated editing, pre-planned narratives, and in some cases, outright fabrication. The Drew Scott situation cracked that illusion wide open. Once viewers began questioning whether the heartwarming reveals and seamless home makeovers were truly authentic, the conversation spread beyond one show. Social media became a courtroom where the entire genre was put on trial. Hashtags questioning the authenticity of dream home shows trended for days. Reddit threads dissected timelines, budgets, and building permits. TikTok creators posted behind-the-scenes accounts from former production assistants who confirmed what many suspected: much of reality TV is far from real. This shift has forced networks into an uncomfortable corner. They face a stark choice: cling to the old ways and risk irrelevance, or adapt and risk exposing the messy, imperfect process that lies behind the curtain. And here's the twist: audiences are increasingly saying they prefer the mess. Independent content creators are already seizing the opportunity. Renovation vloggers, lifestyle influencers, and even small-town contractors are drawing millions of views by documenting every hiccup in real time. The leaky pipes, the delivery delays, the budget arguments. They aren't selling a perfect fantasy, they're selling truth, and it's working. A 2024 survey by Media Insights Group found that 68% of viewers aged 18 to 34 said they were more likely to watch unscripted content if it showed real-life problems without hiding them. For traditional reality TV producers, this is both a warning and a roadmap. Transparency doesn't have to mean boring. The drama is still there. It just comes from genuine human challenges instead of manufactured plot twists. Imagine a home makeover show where the reveal isn't flawless, but where you actually see the homeowners negotiating last-minute compromises. Imagine a cooking competition where a dish burns and there's no magical second-chance plate off camera. That's the kind of honesty viewers are craving. There's also a larger cultural shift at play. Audiences today are hyper-aware of media manipulation. They grew up with access to behind-the-scenes footage, social media leaks, and digital tools that can verify or debunk claims in minutes. They know when a scene is overproduced, when a conversation is too perfectly lit, when a reaction is suspiciously timed. The very thing that once kept the magic alive, tight control over the narrative, is now what threatens to kill it. This is why the Drew Scott controversy may ultimately become a turning point in television history. If networks can pivot, this could usher in a new golden era of reality TV, one that blends compelling storytelling with true transparency. But the transition will be tricky. Some stars will adapt and thrive in this more exposed environment, while others, uncomfortable with losing control over their image, will fade away. The stakes are enormous. Reality television is not just entertainment, it's a multi-billion-dollar global industry. Its survival depends on whether it can evolve faster than the audience's growing skepticism. Just as silent films gave way to talkies and cable TV bowed to streaming, reality TV now faces its own evolutionary leap. The question is, will it take the leap or cling to the ledge until it falls? Because if one thing is clear from this moment, it's that viewers are no longer content to be fooled. They still want stories, they still want drama, they still want transformation, but they want it on their terms, with the unpolished truth front and center. Were you surprised by the truth Suzanne Whang revealed about Drew Scott? Which part of this story caught you off guard the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below.